Hi everybody. I just felt that it was such a huge occurrence that was going to be happening in the celestial realms for this coming equinox that I would create a video to speak about it. Basically, there is a passage in Revelations that speaks about the woman and the dragon. Now, in the ancient times, this referred to the Magdalene, the high priestess. And what's happening in the skies is that the constellation of Virgo, who is the archetype of the priestess, she was also referred to as the Virgin, but originally the word virgin meant a sacred and sovereign woman, a priestess, a woman who saw herself as a sacred vessel for the divine and served the divine. It did not mean a sexually chaste young girl. So I speak about that more in my Grail presentation, which is available on my website for those that are interested. But what's happening in the skies for this coming equinox is, it said, I'll just read the little bit from, I won't read all of it, but this is from Revelation 12, so chapter 12. It says, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head." Now I'll just stop there. So a woman clothed with the sun. So what's going to happen on this equinox is the sun is going to roll down her body, creating a robe of sunlight. And she will have the crescent moon at her feet. The moon under her feet was a turn of phrase used to describe the Magdalene. Not just Mari, but the Magdalene was the title of the high priestess, the woman who taught the Grail mysteries, so the sacred blood mysteries, initiated women into their rites of passage and into ancient feminine mysteries, esoteric wisdom teachings. So she is said to have a crown of 12 stars on this day. So normally the priestess constellation of Virgo is crowned with 9 stars, which is the constellation of Virgo directly above her head, which is comprised of 9 stars. But on this particular equinox, she's going to be crowned with 12 stars because we're going to have 5 planets in Virgo. Now, this is like a herald, a return to the sacred, and in particular, a return to the consciousness of the sacred feminine being understood and honoured, the return of the priestess, if you will. So there's something else that's very exciting. She, on November the 20th last year, 2016, Jupiter was seen to go into her womb because it entered a retrograde period. So from our position on Earth, it appeared to be moving backwards. And it has stayed there for a period of 9.5 months, which is sort of a long pregnancy gestation. So on the day of the equinox, Jupiter is going to roll down between her legs and she is going to appear to birth Jupiter. Now, in the ancient world, Jupiter was known as the Messiah. So again, this is very symbolic. This is the birthing of, or the rebirthing of, the Christ consciousness on our planet. So, you know, a lot of the fundamentalist Christians are sort of expecting Jesus to return as a physical man. But what my understanding or knowing is that this is about what he seeded and sacred kings before him, you know, Osiris, Dumuzi, well, Tammuz, depending on where you're from, Adonis, you know, the resurrected God, the man who becomes a god because he journeys the full hero's journey. So he becomes something greater than a man. He awakens his divine nature in human form. And this is ultimately what we're all here to do. So it's really significant that she's crowned with 12 stars, because these represent the 12 lessons that we journey around the zodiac. Now that's not just, you know, within a lunar month. That is the astrological ages. And when we spend 2,000 years in each sign, as many are aware of, we're just emerging from spending the last 2,000 years in the age of Pisces into what is the Aquarian age. And so journeying around this full mandala as a collective, as a consciousness, experiencing itself subjectively, we are put through the lesson of each one of these zodiac signs in order to transcend the wheel of karma. What I mean by that is to become wise by seeing each one of those zodiac archetypes within us. So seeing the strengths, seeing the shadow traits, understanding the lessons and mastering those lessons, we become whole. We complete the hero's journey. And ironically, what makes the hero a true hero is he descends to integrate his feminine, so that he's not just, you know, a boy, but he's a king, a hero, a man that's integrated his feminine by going deep within and rebirthing himself in the womb of the great mother, the cosmic mother, which is what's happening here on a symbolic level for us all. So, you know, all of the ancient civilizations that were more advanced than our own, like the ancient Egyptians, those in Mesopotamia, ancient India, all prophesized that, you know, this time would happen, and that we as a collective would have the opportunity to transcend, going round and round like Groundhog Day, learning through karma. So karma is when, you know, you learn to do unto others as is going to happen to you, because, you know, it's like a tit for tat. Whatever we do to someone in a previous incarnation ends up being exactly how we suffer in the following incarnation. And so this is an opportunity for us to transcend that sort of, you know, learning through hard trials and lessons, and rather being conscious so that we can manifest in the moment, in the now, and be fully responsible, you know, thinking before we speak, understanding the power of word, the power of thought, the power of action, so that we're manifesting from the heart rather than manifesting from fear, which is what we do when we're only operating out of the lower self, which is the bottom 3 chakras. So that's when we're ruled by our, you know, our lowest fears, survival fears, which is base chakra. So we're motivated by that, which will ensure our physical safety first and foremost, which is, you know, what we're here to master ages 0 through to 7, when the energy is being activated in the base energy center. The second energy center, the sacral, is when we learn a lot of emotional lessons. So this is about, okay, transcending being a drama queen or a drama king. And finally, aged 14 to 21, it's about transcending being ruled by the rational mind, one who has a closed mind, who is limited only to the perceptions that their rational consciousness can process. So what's going to happen is that we are now entering into the Great Rebirth, as the Indigenous people call it. when we are rebirthing ourselves. We're going through a metamorphosis from our consciousness being veiled. The word revelations comes from the Latin revelatio, meaning to unveil. And the role of the sacred feminine is to unveil the truth. So by the sun illuminating the sign of the priestess, you know, this is an opportunity for us to be unveiled, no longer just, you know, like animals. Oh, I do a disservice to animals. There are animals that have consciousness beyond a lot of people. But just operating in 3D, like teenagers, you know, in a sort of paradigm of me, always looking at situations from what we can get rather than how we can serve. And that's the shift that takes us into the heart center. You know, the lesson of Virgo is, how can I be of service? By being a vessel, a conduit to anchor heaven on earth, by dedicating oneself, one's hands, one's mouth, one's mind, to be of service to the greater good, to the divine plan unfolding. So it's a very exciting time to be on the planet. It's said that there's so many people on the planet right now. Whoever has ever been here and had an incarnation is here for this. You know, this is something which only happens sort of, you know, every 250,000 years, it's said. So it's a very big event. So we're shifting from 3D, so just understanding reality as that which we can perceive through our 5 earthly senses, to moving into the heart. So in the heart, we understand reality through a higher consciousness, through what we know to be true in our heart. So this is where we become more transparent. We can't lie, we can't cheat, we can't steal, because our conscience in the heart is directing us. And if we're not holding that vibration, we won't be able to withstand the frequency of 4th dimensional reality. So the test for us right now is, if you're suffering, and a lot of people have been initiated very recently with difficult circumstances that were a catalyst to let go, as they say, let go and let God. So, you know, I've heard of people going through extreme loss, whether that's death of loved ones, home, vans burning down suddenly, people being separated from their children, just, you know, an initiation to let go, to surrender. And what is the greatest strength of the feminine? It's to surrender. So that's our ultimate challenge. Now, something that's very significant about the fact that Jupiter is being birthed in the ancient world, you know, when you would have your great initiation, you would go into a womb-like sarcophagus within the pyramids of ancient Egypt, or you would return to the womb of the Great Mother. Women practice this if they've been initiated into the Grail mysteries, the Graal, the sacred blood, when they menstruate, you know, as their consciousness spirals, as the blood spirals in their womb, and they go deep within, understanding that the underworld is not hell, it is the womb of the Great Mother. So we are entering into that. So if fears are coming up, take your consciousness deep into the earth, deep into the heart of the mother, and allow yourself to sort of be gestating there like an embryo. And this will help to keep you centered, even if things seem very intense, the change that's happening out in the world. If you plug into the dramas that are happening externally, you will be pulled off center. All right, so the challenge is to maintain our center, to embody the strength of the priestess, which is to be gestating the divine within us, So this is a time for prayer vigil. This is a time for lighting candles and invoking a graceful rebirth for our global family and for, excuse me, interesting timing. Stuck in my throat. Fifth dimension. So there's more I want to cover though, so let me get to that. So this coincides with the Jewish feasting day called the Feast of Trumpets. And there's a section from Corinthians in the Bible, chapter 15, verse 52, that says, "In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound and the dead shall be raised, incorruptible, and we shall all be changed." Or we shall be changed. So this is key. I just love the symbolism at the last trump. I mean, my goodness, the fact that, you know, we have President Trump, who's been sort of prophesied to be the last president. So the last Trump, this is the last wake-up call. He's served, if you will, as the sort of the father of patriarchy, a pin-up boy of greed and power, one who is operating in third dimension rather than somebody who's acting, you know, from a place of oneness, which is the lesson of the Aquarian age. So it's said there will be a flash of light, that the sun will send out a flash of light. Now this has already been happening. We've had, since the recent solar eclipse, we have had a number of X-class solar flares. So you may have felt very, very tired, wiped out energetically. And the reason for this is whenever there are solar flares, it takes about 3 days for those high frequency light waves of energy to reach Earth. And when they do, it's a lot for our light bodies, our energy bodies, to integrate those high frequency energies. And the easiest way for us to do that is in the dreaming, in our sleep state. So, you know I've been sleeping 11 hours a night this week and still feeling absolutely exhausted. This is, you know, our light bodies trying to integrate and upgrade, if you will, in preparation for this shift into fourth dimension Earth. So, you know, if it's sunny where you are, it's wonderful to stand with your eyes closed and breathe the sunlight in to your light body with gratitude, with love, taking it in like mana, if you will, a food, an energy for the light body. You can sight the sun safely within the first 10 minutes of dawn or the last 10 minutes of sunset, but no more than that, because it damages the retina. It's an ancient yogic practice called sun eating. And it's said, you know, the children of the sun, as they were back in the time of Ra, the sun god, would return. So those that are aligned with the natural cycles, that have trust and faith in the celestial spheres initiating us through this, will actually find this process ecstatic. You know, the Bible refers to it as the rapture, but it's an expansion of our light. So this is an opportunity to not contract in fear. For instance, you know, the purpose of this is not to be hoarding physical, you know, food and survival supplies. This would be the preparation if we were going to stay in third density. And it is often how we prepare if we're coming from fear, if we are reacting to news of this, to these ancient prophecies from third dimensional reality. But if we understand that what we're going to be going through is a gear shift, that whatever preparations we do in a physical will not prepare us for this new reality that we're going to be in, which is less dense. So we won't be operating on the same level of awareness. Now, all of these gifts we will remember, okay? But nobody can succinctly say, well, this is what's going to happen exactly. All we can do is attune to our intuition, our gnosis, our inner knowing, and trust the unfolding of the divine plan. So the other big piece of information is that the return of Nibiru, Planet X, the 10th planet, is also part of this prophecy. It's referred to as the Red Dragon, and this is because it's a planet that is cycling around our sun's twin sun, our binary sun, which was discovered in the 70s and named Nemesis. And it was said to be the catalyst for the Great Flood, and the Sumerians called it Marduk, who they said destroyed Tiamat, the Great Mother, who reigned up until then. And then, you know, ancient Sumeria saw the fall of the goddess, and things became more patriarchal. So what Nibiru, or the Red Dragon, signifies, it is a planet that is comprised of red iron ore. So it appears to be a disk with red wings and a red tail. And the sediments in the Australian outback and in Arizona are said to be remnants of, you know, previous visits through our solar system. And so this planet is said to eclipse our sun for a period of up to 3.5 days. And during darkness, understandably, a lot of this is the void. So people can project onto that unknowable time of, you know, great mystery, not knowing what's going to happen, their greatest fears or their greatest hopes and wishes. So this is, in a sense, how we create our own day of reckoning, our own day of atonement. And on that, you know, in ancient Sumeria, it was said that the high priest on the day of the spring equinox, which it will be here in Australia where I live, it'll be the autumn equinox for those in the northern hemisphere, he would, on this day of atonement, do this symbol. Okay, now that was made famous by Leonard Nimoy in Star Trek, and then later by Robin Williams, for those of us who were kids in the 70s, Mork from Ork, and he'd say nanu nanu. So on the day of the Day of Atonement, the high priest would cover his eyes with that sacred symbol, and he would tone the sound of God. And it was said that for a split second, the whole world would return back to Eden. So what we have the opportunity for is to step through, if you will, a portal through that birthing gate of the void. When Nibiru returns, when we have the meeting of, you know, light and shadow, and to hold true to what it is we choose to manifest. So if we have unveiled the divine within, we will focus on that, and that's what we will awaken to. If we focus on our worst fears, okay, on the human lower self, we will continue in the wheel of karma. We will continue having a 3D experience. So, you know, the challenge is to stay in the heart. Now, any woman that's given birth will know, you know, that's a challenge. If you've done hypnobirthing, then you're probably streets ahead. So, you know, when there's chaos happening, when things look the darkest before the dawn, this is an opportunity to hold a frequency, to tone on the Day of Atonement the great sound of the divine unmanifest, the sound from which we were all birthed, which is Om. Okay? Om is the Sanskrit tone for which governs the third eye, helps to open the center through which we manifest, through which we visualize that which we are consciously creating. But more than that, the sound Om, when it is toned, when it is chanted, you can see on YouTube, iron filings will arrange themselves when hearing that tone into the most powerful sacred symbol of the tantric tradition, known as the Sri Yantra. The sacred mandala is the symbol for heaven on earth, the integration of feminine and masculine, divine feminine, divine masculine, in perfect symmetry, in perfect harmony, integration and union. And so this is the celebration that I will be celebrating. It is the return of sacred union consciousness. And so we see the priestess and the sacred king, Leo, lit up and birthing the Christ consciousness again, which, you know, if you're like me, this can't come soon enough. You know, the pain that we feel at watching the suffering of our brothers and sisters around the planet right now, with so many refugees and so many people, you know, suffering because of, you know, the early Braxton Hicks sort of labour of this great birth, you know, for those experiencing flooding right now. So there are a lot of people suffering. We have more people committing suicide on the planet than ever before. It's the #1 killer here in Australia of people aged 15 through to 44. So it doesn't get talked about, but people are hurting, okay? So this is a time for us to come together. The strength of the feminine, apart from surrender, is about communion, community. So this is a time for inclusion, to not focus on our differences or on separation, but on, hey, we're all in this together. Everyone is my brother, everyone is my sister. And the more of us that are visualizing and focusing through chanting, through meditating, through acting as spiritual midwives for the collective rebirth, the more graceful this birth will be. So thanks for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the other side. So whether or not it plays out on September 23, who knows? You know, it's all a great mystery, but it's certainly a herald to say, if it doesn't happen on that date, it will happen in the days, weeks, months to follow. So blessings, and remember, stay focused on celebrating the birth rather than on lamenting the death. Understand they're two sides of the one coin, the one crossroads. And as with any birthing woman, you wouldn't be lamenting the loss of the death of the maiden. You'd be celebrating the birth of the new holy child and the birth of parents. So blessings, and yeah, thank you for tuning in. Blessings.